again, teens.
Hello.
Hello. And hello from Mrs. Novak, too. But she just can't come all the way in from Cumberland and be here. But her heart is with us. All year we've been talking about money management principles. And most recently we've been talking about the wisdom and prudency in how we spend and invest our money. All we do with our money comes from attitudes of our heart and shows where our affections or our loves are. Sometimes we do foolish things just because of ignorance or immaturity. And so that's why we're teaching this series. God gives us practical wisdom in his word because he's our Heavenly Father, and a father guides and helps his children. And so his word is full of principles to help us keep us from financial ruin. Not every decision that we make about money is necessarily about a right or wrong issue. Sometimes it's about good, better, or best. Today's lesson, however, is about the financial cost of doing things that God specifically says are wrong. We're going to learn today that sinful lifestyles lead to poverty. And our verse to memorize is...
And sinful lifestyles lead to poverty. Proverbs 23:21. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Proverbs 23:21.
What are some of these sinful lifestyles, Jared?
Well, drunkenness and gluttony are basically indulgences of the flesh, and the flesh lusts or craves, and these sins are the willful choices to try to satisfy these desires. The choice to sin or indulge the flesh in these areas begin because...
Well, because a desire for pleasure. I think this thing looks fun. Maybe Satan doesn't tempt us with sin with something ugly. He uses a bait, like we would put a worm on a hook. He makes sin look fun, and there is pleasure in sin for a season, but it always has a price tag. It might come from a desire for popularity or power of influence. If I do this, it'll, how many a man has picked up a cigarette because it'll make me look cool like a man, and people will kind of look up to me, or a feeling of power or influence over people, not realizing that desire for that popularity or that esteem is going to cost him his health and his money for the rest of his life as he becomes addicted to that. Or the desire for pain release and peace. Maybe you turn to alcohol or immorality or any of these addictions, gambling, cigarettes, drugs, because you're empty inside, you're hurting, and there's painful things you've experienced, and so you can get temporary release. You're looking for peace or looking for a release from pain, but the problem is when you wake up from that addiction action, the pain is still there, the lack of peace is still there. And the neat thing is, these are all lies from Satan, these desires, and they will at best only temporarily satisfy. But God promises us lasting pleasure. God promises us lasting popularity in the fact we're accepted by God. God promises us the release from pain and the peace that comes in him. So Satan's substitutes are never going to be permanent. They're never going to be helpful. What God promises will. And Satan's lies, Satan's substitutes have a high price tag. Spiritually, physically, and financially. And we're going to focus on the financial aspect in this lesson.
Yes, so let's look at drunkenness and gluttony. Gluttony is overindulgence of the flesh in all areas, but particularly in the area of food. We can also look at cigarettes, drugs, partying, riotous living, gambling, immorality, all kinds of things. Interestingly enough, these sins have many things in common and all go together.
We even could talk about tattoos. How many of us have seen people who are financially in horrible strips of bondage, but they've got money for all the tattoos all over their body, looking for popularity, looking for praise of men, and they spent their money foolishly and bought themselves into financial bondage. But what do these sins have in common? Well, we mentioned they're all come by feeding the fleshly desires. Remember, we've talked about deferred gratification, where I'm willing to die to this immediate impulse because the end result I can defer to something better. And living by the lust of the flesh is an immediate pleasure right now instead of looking toward the future and obedience to God and into what is the benefits. God gives us rules and guidelines because he knows what's best for us, and he knows if we live by the immediate impulse, we are apt to destroy ourselves. These sins are not entered into with the intent to destroy or to be brought into bondage. They're entered into because they look fun, they look appealing, or they're going to satisfy or something. But though they are entered into one step at a time and it feels safe, they always have a downward slide, which is destruction. They lead to bondage. And we're going to talk again, like I said, on the financial area of the bondage in this particular lesson. But that's by no means the only cost we pay for.
Financial ruin. The initial cost of the item to my pocketbook. The most obvious financial ruin is the initial cost of the sinful item. Whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or drugs or something else, they all cost lots of money. Think of the prodigal son who spent his whole inheritance on riotous living and ended up as a pauper, living with the pigs and eating their food because he had no money left after his sinful living. His brother, who lived without these habits, still had lots of money left. Drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, partying, gambling, they all cost. And the high cost is immeasurable. But remember, it all starts small. Sin is addictive and leads you to places you never intended to go, with price tags you never intended to pay either.
Okay, some would say, yeah, I know cigarettes cost money, I know alcohol costs money, tattooing and partying, but immorality, that's free, right? Sex outside of God's boundary of marriage, isn't that free? No. Look at Proverbs chapter 5. We're going to go through verse 1 through 12. He says, "My son, attend unto wisdom, that you may regard discretion, and that thy lips may know knowledge." In other words, listen up here, as that's what he's saying. "For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil." It looks so appealing, looks so easy. But here's the price tag. "But her end is bitter as wormwood and sharp as a two-edged sword." Those are pretty strong words. "Her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold of hell." No, immorality is not free. "Lest thou shouldst ponder the path of her life. Her waves are movable, that thou canst not know them. Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of the mouth." The writer here is saying, listen, listen, listen. I know it looks so good. I know it looks so appealing, but listen, it's not. "Remove your way far from her." There's an urgency here. "And come not nigh the door of her house." Why? "Lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel." What's that talking about? You're going to give away the honor of your character. You're going to bring cruelty to your life. It's going to be a struggle. All the consequences that go with living an immoral lifestyle and having children out of wedlock and losing your purity and divorces and relationships that are broken are going to give away your honor and bring a hard life. Verse 10, "Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of strangers." That's divorce. The divorce payments, the divorce losses, the child support that's going to somebody, the new stepfather of the children that you don't even know, he's living on your money. That's the consequences of this kind of lifestyle. And then verse 11, "And thou mourn at the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed." The sexually transmitted diseases that come, the ruin to the body, the financial costs, because of your health. Maybe you can't even get health insurance sometimes. Verse 12, "And then you say, how I have hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof." That's the energy gone because of the remorse. That zaps our energy. And remember it says the drowsiness will clothe a man with rags. The remorse of wrong choices when you refuse instruction drags you down. So learn, young people, while you're young, I'm not going to go there.
Yes, for sure. And so financial ruin can not only come from the initial cost of the item, but the cost of the item to my energy and productivity can also be a cost. And drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags.
Yep, that's what our verse packet says.
Yep. Indulgence of the flesh, whether it be alcohol or gluttony or drugs or immorality, gambling, slothfulness, or whatever, leads to lack of energy.
Lack of energy, maybe because if the item is consumed, it's harmful to the body. and therefore it's energy draining, causing fatigue and a drowsiness that will close ourselves with rags. Alcohol and the hangover that comes from that. You don't feel, and the next day, the headache, the lack, just the icky feeling, so you don't feel like getting up and taking care of things, or maybe you're just on gluttony, eating too much of the wrong stuff, it drains your energy, and obesity drains your energy, and it will bring poverty to you. Maybe it's because these fleshy indulgences, they don't satisfy for long, and so it leaves your soul empty, causing depression, and depression causes a drowsiness that will close you with rags because you just don't feel motivated to work. It can be because the fleshly indulgence we know is sin, and instinctively and innately we know it's sin, even if our culture tells it's okay, and even if we can argue in our minds that it's okay, there's still a weight from the guilt of sin, and that guilt will drain our energy and make us unmotivated, and that drowsiness will close a man with rags too. So sinful lifestyles lead to poverty, and which drowsiness shall close a man with rags is very true.
And this loss of energy leads to less motivation in work, less motivation in taking care of my home and my health, less motivation in being responsible to pay for bills so that I get in more trouble with my spending, etc. It also brings less motivation in cleaning up after myself or my surroundings or repairing and maintaining property. It has all kinds of drawbacks. And it also has sinful habits, cost me my health, which can never be replaced. It can bring huge medical bills, and some medical insurance companies often will offer discounts to those who do not drink or who do not smoke or who have health club memberships or other healthy things, because the insurance companies know that these people will have fewer health issues. The cost of the item to those around me as well. Not only does the cost affect us, but it can affect those around us. Our entire culture is struggling with the high cost of sin. Here are just a few statistics. Smoking-related illness in the United States costs more than $300 billion each year, including nearly $170 billion for direct medical care for adults, more than $156 billion in lost productivity, including $5.6 billion in lost productivity due to secondhand smoke exposure. The cost of excessive alcohol in the United States in the year 2010 reached $249 billion, or about $2.05 per drink. Most, or about 77%, of these costs were due to binge drinking.
Okay, those are just a few statistics. It's impossible to measure the amount of dollars it would take for our social system. Our social system is drowning with the cost of caring for those who have lived in immorality, the costs of abortion, the costs of child care for putting children in homes of foster care and adoption, the cost of all the poverty that comes in upon a home, the single moms who are trying to raise kids, all the poverty that comes because people have not abided by God's laws of marriage and structural family living, the cost of parents not knowing how to raise children, so you've got such much rebellion and all this. You can't even measure the cost, and our cops will tell you about all the domestic abuse they have to fight on a daily basis because of sinful lifestyles. God puts down guidelines, guardrails, because he loves us and wants us to protect us from this ruin.
Like the song we sing on Wednesday night, sometimes God knows what's best for me. That's why he made rules. And so God's principles and ideas can help save us from a lot of heartache. Let's look at John 10:10, which says, "For the thief," that is Satan, "comes not," or he doesn't come for any other purpose then, "but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I," talk about Christ, "am come that ye might have life, and that ye might have it more abundantly."
Sin always destroys. Sin always costs. And it always costs more than we want to pay. The financial cost of these areas is immeasurable. But the option is obedience to Jesus Christ. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. Let Christ be our boss. He came to give us what? Abundant life. More than we can explain. It's there. It's ours. We have to be willing to accept the fact that he knows what's best for us. These fleshly urges are strong, but they're not of God. And many a young person has, oh, well, I just got to try it. I just got to try it. And has thrown their life away and been in financial ruin, spiritual ruin, physical ruin, because they just thought, I got to try. It doesn't pay. God wants the best for you. He loves you. He loves you intensely. And he's put guardrails in his word for how you even spend your money to help protect you because he loves you.
Let's go ahead and review our theme and our verse again. Sinful lifestyles lead to poverty. Proverbs 23:21. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Proverbs 23:21.
Bye now.
Bye. Take care.